topics kept on flowing, meaning that the group really wants to learn more. As parents, we want to learn more. Today, I just imagined a day when we were supposed to sit together, sip a few bottles of wine and eat snacks, and just think of what we have learned within this group, the topics that we have learned, and just highlight on those topics. That's what I was praying for. And I was telling Pastor Mishek, I'm not just doing an overall running away from the mission, but God has His own way, and I'm so used to moderate, and I'm very good at that, by the way. So used to moderate. So today to be given a topic to share, it was like, oh, I need to come down and be a presenter, not a moderator, because I'll end up moderating. Thank you so much, parents, for having been here. And thank you, our other presenters, mentors who have been on this forum, sharing insights on how we are going to take care of children, of God's children. We are just custodians. God has given us a responsibility to take care of these children. Today, we are looking at the topic that is titled Children's Rights versus Responsibilities. We are very much aware that children's rights is one topic that is widely discussed, one topic that is very sensitive, one topic that is given a lot of praise and a lot of funding. So the outline of our presentation tonight, we are going to look at the introduction of the topic. We are going to define what a right is, and I would ask Pastor Mishek if you can kindly share the slides. We'll be very grateful from this end if the slides can be shared. Thank you. So that we can move together. So we'll define what a right is, and we'll as well look at what a responsibility is. And then we'll go into the nitty-gritties of our lesson for today, where we'll look at the children's rights as we marry them to the responsibilities that these children do have. Last but not the least, we'll look at the consequences of knowing the rights without stating the responsibilities that are attached to it. We'll conclude our topics. Then after that, I will call for questions, contributions from my fellow parents, and then we'll call it a day. Like I said, we know that children are our future leaders. And the training of these children begins from our homes. It begins from our homes. If we have children that are responsible, not just children who know their rights, but children that are responsible of the rights that they have, we know that then the church will be strong. And when churches are strong, we know that the country or the nation at large will have good leaders. That's why it is logical to invest in a child. And when we invest in a child, we are actually investing in our own future, our next generation. Why then should we invest? Why then should we even talk about their rights? Why the rights of children? This is because children are the most vulnerable group of our society. And oftentimes we find that they are subjected to abuse, exploitation, neglect. Sometimes you see that these children, they lack health care and sometimes education. especially for children that do not have a voice. And when I say children without a voice, I mean children like orphans. I mean children like those having special needs, those children that have disabilities. I also mean the children that maybe they have their parents that are not capable of taking care of them. It is then our responsibility, or the responsibility of every sensible adult, that these children are protected at all cost. It does not matter whose child we are talking about here, but we mean all the children, be it the children we find in the streets, be it the children that we meet at church. All meaningful adult is responsible for the protection of these children. According to Fune, my very good pastor and one of my favorite pastors, in the book that he has written on parenting for heaven, he has stated that parents who are serious about parenting for heaven should be informed about the most prominent ideologies that have shaped and are still shaping our societies, thinking, our societies, functioning, and operations. There are so many things that come in, and one of them is the issue of children's rights. But Fune is encouraging us as parents, when we see these things being talked about, being funded, it is the responsibility of every meaningful parent to take key interest, to get information on what is coming. Some of these teachings can be very appealing, and they bear a semblance of truth, yet they are subtly misleading, if not well explained, especially to our children themselves. I'm a teacher by profession, and I have come across certain sentiments where a child will just say, I didn't sign up for this. What is this? What is happening? Why are they treating us like this? It is my right. But then I take key interest to call this child who's talking about the rights. I ask to find out what really the matter is and what right is being breached here. So it is very important that as we see things coming, as we see a lot of publicity on certain issues, we need as parents to take very key interest in this. When we look at the Bible, when we look at the Bible and the fall of man, we see that it was out of a good thing, out of a good instruction that the devil capitalized on and deceived Eve. Therefore, even us, as we learn lessons from our forefathers, it is very important to see that the good things that are coming, how then are we nurturing them? How then are we taking them? Because a good thing, you find that it can lead to certain consequences that we are now seeing in our society, we are now seeing in our children. Why? It's because these rights that they have are not really well explained, and to some extent, instead of a right that is meant to protect them, is now being used by the same child who the adults have key interest to protect them, to see that they are ahead, they are in safe hands and they are in safe places. But you find that it's being abused by themselves. That's why, as parents, we need to take key interest and make sure that as these children state their rights, as they learn their rights, what is then are their responsibilities towards those rights? Before we embrace just any theory or ideologies, parents should take time to study and get to relate to the biblical teachings. Hence, the study today will look at some of these rights and relate them to the biblical teachings and see how we can help our children that what is intended for good should indeed be used for their own benefit. Pune also mentions that to just accept secular ideologies with a critical mind may draw both parents and children away from the truth proclaimed by the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. So when we want to protect these children, let us always know that we have to relate it to the biblical teaching and see how this thing that is meant for good, how is it helping the children? We have seen that children's rights are good channels of safeguarding the lives of the children worldwide. That's why UNICEF is mandated by the United Nations General Assembly to advocate for the children's rights. The work of UNICEF is to make sure that or should I say UNICEF is mandated or guided by the United Nations Convention on the Children's Right. And this is an agreement that protects children's rights. This convention was adopted way back in 1989, and it is the most widely ratified human rights treaty in history. We may not go into exploring the milestone of this history, but I would love each and every parent in here to just take time and read. After the presentation, we can send some of the sites that can be of interest to you to just read and find out the history about this, and you just get enriched. So we see that the major purpose of these children's rights is to safeguard all children and put their best interest first as they help to listen to what children have to say. Why then should we listen to children? They are human beings as well. They are human beings as well. And God has a purpose for them. That's why we need to listen to them. We need to give them a good audience. So in this presentation, we are going to look at the children's rights and relate them to the responsibilities, like I have said in the preamble. But before we go further, let's look at or let's define what a right is. Let's define what a right is. We find that rights are legal, social, or ethical principles of freedom, sorry about that. So we are defining what a right is, and we are saying rights are legal, social, or ethical principles of freedom or entitlement. It's actually children's entitlement. They have a right. In other words, rights are fundamental normative rules about what is allowed of people or owned to people according to some legal system, social convention, or ethical theory. In simple terms, and for the sake of our discussion today, we can define rights as common claims of people which every civilized society recognizes as essential claims for their development. And we are going to understand this definition as we look at the rights of children. Therefore, they are enforced by the state, irrespective of their age, race, class, religion, or gender. But are these children's rights also human rights? Because before the advocating of these children's rights, in general, we have human rights. So I would say, yes, children's rights are human rights too. So international human rights instruments recognizes that children as well as adults have basic human rights. Children's rights are specialized human rights that apply to all human beings below the age of 18 years. So this is giving us a guide on who a child is. According to the United Nations, the convention stated that a child is any human being below the age of 18 years. And it is this age that we see that they are most vulnerable. It is the age that is most exploited. It is the age that is mostly abused. Hence, they are right. So now let's define what a responsibility is. A responsibility is the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or having control over something. We have defined rights and we know that our children have rights. But what we should not forget is that they do have a responsibility as well. It is not just about praising their rights, wanting their rights to be respected, but it is also about knowing the responsibilities that they have or a responsibility that is attached to that right. And once we get to teach our children their responsibilities in relation to the rights that they have, you will find that we'll have a future or a generation that is well balanced. A generation that will not quickly rush to committing suicide, instead, take a responsibility for the actions that they have engaged themselves in. We can move on. Even as we now look at the structure of our study today. The structure of our study, we know that there are a lot of children's rights. There are a lot of children's rights that we can look at, but for the sake of time and also for the benefit of our study today, we are just going to look at the core principles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. That's what we are going to look at. And if you have studied so much on the rights of children, and if you have looked at the United Nations Convention, we will find that they have included the 4 articles, which are the guiding principles that have special emphasis on these rights. And these are the 4 articles that we are going to look at. And among them, you will find that there are so many rights that our children do have. But this study will also make sure that we attach a responsibility on each and every right that has been identified. So Article 2, according to the United Nations Convention on Children's Rights, we find that they have looked at non-discrimination. And on this one, it states that all rights apply to all children without exception. All rights apply to all children without exception. We look at their children's stature, whether they are tall, whether they are short, regardless of their background, whether they are coming from a rich family or they are coming from a poor family. The rights apply to all of them. Whether they have special needs they too have rights. Whether they are slow to learn, they too have rights. The rights that a child who's passing number 1 in class has, it's the same right that a child who has come out number last has. So the United Nations Convention looks at the children's right for all the children, regardless of their religion, ethnicity group, all the rights apply to them. The second one is Article number 3 that talks about the best interest of children. And it states that the best interest covers all decisions affecting boys and girls. Remember, we identified that a child is any human being, be it a boy or a girl below the age of 18 years. The article continues to state that in any action involving children, their best interest should be primary or should be given primary consideration. Article number 6 also states the right to survive and develop. The article goes further than granting children the right to live. Every child has a right to live. No wonder if it is in our nation a long time ago, abortion was illegal. It is now when we have heard that if a child does not want to have, or if someone does not want, a female does not want to have a child, they are free to abort a child. But in actual sense, when these rights were being advocated and preached so much, we find that every child has a right to live, including the right to survive and to develop. And this is what we are supposed to inculcate in our children now, so that if they get to learn any other different teachings, the children must be able to know that every child, every human being brought into this world, conceived to be a human being, has a right to live. When we look at article number 12, it talks about participation and respect for the views of the children. In order to determine what is in the child's best interest, it is both logical and necessary that children should be listened to and have their views taken seriously. We shall share this, and you can, there's a lot on just that you can take time to just study on your own. Now, let's look at the main ideas for our presentation today. I'm sorry, someone is listening to the presentation and I'm able to get the echo. Let me just make sure that they are far from me. Just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Someone has just joined, but within the house and listening to the same presentation. And so I was getting my own my own presentation. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the meat of our lesson for tonight. Children's rights versus responsibilities. Don't forget the core principles of the Convention on the Rights of Children that we discussed earlier. So we are now just going to look at those 4 core principles and marry them to the common rights that we have for our children. and then relate them to the responsibilities that they do have. So children have a right to be treated fairly, no matter who they are. You can relate it to article number 2 that we just discussed earlier. So we see that children have a right to be treated fairly, no matter who they are, where they are from, what they believe, the language they speak, and where they live. Every child is special, group. Every child is special. They are special because they also do have a right to live. And so, as we let the children know that they are supposed to be treated fairly, no matter who they are, whether they are not doing well at home, they are supposed to be treated with all fairness. Whether they cannot speak the language that you want them to speak, we have seen now it's about speaking English. More of a child must know how to speak English so that the child can communicate. But let's take it easy on them. They have a right to speak a language that they are comfortable with. If we are to teach them a new language, then it has to be a language taught. Not to take it as a must, not to take it in such a way that instead of a child enjoying what we are trying to inculcate, we find that a child finds our teaching rather uncomfortable. So we have to know that they have a right to be treated fairly. But then what is their responsibility on this fair treatment that we have to give them? Do they have a responsibility? Yes. Their responsibility to this right is that they should always treat others fairly as well. We have to teach our children that it is not just the children in your home that have rights. Even a child from the neighbor's house, even a child in the streets without shoes, they also have a right. Hence, as these children know about their rights, they should know that they have a responsibility to treat others fairly. When they spread their arms straight, a long time ago, maybe some of us parents, we can remember when we used to do on the parades, would use up, sideways. So when a child does the sideways, where the hands, the fingers are ending, that's where that child's rights end as well. As soon as the child spreads the arms, if the child touches another person, then the child is in another person's territory. They should learn to respect their rights and know that they have a responsibility to respect other children's rights as well. Let's take it to the Bible as we read Proverbs 2, verse 8. And it has this on record. Other people are selfish and reject what is right in order to follow what is wrong. On them, God will pour out his anger and fury. It is a long passage that you can study, but it is important for us to inculcate in our children that it is not only them that have rights. Even other people do have what? Do have rights. Hence the need to treat other people fairly. As they know about their rights, let's marry them to the biblical teachings. We can as well look at Proverbs 8. In fact, we are supposed to look at Proverbs 8, verse 2, so that we can marry these rights that the children do have to the biblical teaching. I read Romans, but I'm supposed to read Proverbs 2, verse 8. It's a long passage, but we will just read a few passages. And verse 8 has this on record. He protects those who treat others fairly. Are we getting it, parents? God protects those who treat others fairly and guards those who are devoted to Him. We are talking about the heavenly children. We are talking about children whose destination is heaven, who are just passing through this world. And I'm sure it is the desire of each and every meaningful parent to make sure that after this life is done, we are united with our children. And so, in as much as our children are aware of their rights to be treated fairly, let us also teach them that God desires that they treat others fairly as well. Because in so doing, God will protect them, God will guide them, God will guard them. Let's look at another right in relation to the core principles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Children have the right to basic needs. So the right to basic needs being fulfilled. When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of need, the bottom part and the biggest of them all, the bottom part talks about the basic needs. We have to provide with our children we provide to our children with the basic needs. They have a basic standard of living, which includes food, clothing, a safe place to live. But then what is their responsibility to this right? And I can tell and see in so many parents, if not all the parents, that we have respected this right so much. We see early in the morning, we see parents waking up to go and toil for their children, taking them to school. Right now here in Lusaka, there isn't much traffic in the morning. Why? Because children are not going to school. The traffic that we see and we have now is now the parents going for work to make sure that they are right to have the basic standard of living, to have the food on the table, to have the clothing on their bodies, to have a safe place to live in, a shelter above their heads. But what is their responsibility? If they know that they have a right to have food, to have clothes, to have shelter, what is their responsibility? You have provided food as a parent. If your children are old enough, their responsibility is to prepare the same food. If they are young and they are not in position to prepare the food that you have provided, at least if they are able, they can take the food to the table. They can save the food. If they are not able to hold a plate of unshima and take it on the table, at least when it is empty, we have to teach our children that it is their responsibility to remove those dirty dishes and take them where they are supposed to be. It is their responsibility, if they are able, to wash the clothes that you have provided. It is their responsibility. If you have provided shelter, they have a place to sleep. It is their responsibility to make sure that what you have provided is maintained. And this is what God did. If we go back to the creation story and we read in Genesis, we find that when God provided everything, he gave instructions to Adam so that the earth is maintained by us. So even these children, they have a responsibility. It is not just the work of a parent to make sure that their rights are respected, but we have to teach our children that with this right come with a responsibility. Apart from that, the children have a responsibility to appreciate their standard of living. What the parent has tried to provide for a child, children must be able to know that it is the best that their parents have done for them. When we read 1 Timothy 6, verse 6, it encourages us that godliness with contentment is great gain. Let's help our children to know that when you have provided the basic needs, when you have provided the standard of living, that is the best that you can provide at that time. There are children who, if they do not know the responsibility that they have with the basic needs that you have provided, if we have not taught them their responsibility on what we have provided and what we have made sure that their rights are respected, we see these children picking things that are not theirs. We see children picking a pencil that is fancy, that is what? Hide it. In short, stealing from their friends. Why? It is because we have not explained the responsibility that they have. They have to appreciate their standard of living. They have to be content with that, what you have provided as a parent. Hebrews 13:5 tells us that keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you in need, nor forsake you. So the children must be able to know that what you have provided at that moment is the best. Let's look at another right. Children have a right to education. Children have a right to an education that develops the personalities and encourages them to respect other people, other people's culture, and as well as respecting the environment. We have seen a lot of educated people who have obtained education from very good schools. As you are walking, they are done with eating whatever they are eating. They just throw it. They will not take time to look for a bin nearby. They just throw it. Meaning that it is a child who is very much aware of the rights. I need to get the education. But then they do not know the responsibility that has come with the education that they have obtained. Apart from that, while we provide the education to these, our children, and we tell them they have a right to this good education, what is their responsibility? They are responsible for studying and making use of what they have learned, just as I explained earlier on. They have a responsibility to study. Nowadays, we have seen parents being in examination rooms at work. When a child is writing, they are the ones writing exams. They don't sleep. They have to wake this child up, sit on the table, wait for this child to study. No, 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 no. We have our own responsibilities. Let us teach our children their responsibility. They need to study. They need to put all their efforts to what we have provided. One friend of mine, just when these results came out, complained to say, I don't like the results that my child got. And she went on blaming herself to say, it's because I was so busy that I couldn't find time to study with my child. I told my friend, no, 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 no. You provided, you did what you could. You paid for the school fees. You provided the uniforms. You provided everything, good learning materials to this child. Your work was to encourage the child. Yes, you can wake up the child if you have seen that the child is dragging, but to study for a child, it means we are losing it. We are not attaching the right that the child has with the responsibility that is now for this child. I am a teacher, and my subject, I can teach my children. When they are studying, I can give help. Every parent has also a responsibility to help the child where the child is failing. That's why we even give them homework to go and do at home. And we expect the parents to be there helping, calculating the math to the child, to just have a different explanation. Where you can do it. But for you to take it all to yourself, to now start studying on behalf of this child, I think you you have so much to do that you will be failing in your duties with other responsibilities. Let a child learn that he or she has a right that is being respected by you taking the child to a good school, but this child has a responsibility as well. Attaching it to the biblical teaching, we can look at Colossians 3:23, which says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not human masters. This is what we need to teach our children. They have a responsibility, even as we respect their right, let them honor up to their responsibility. The right to protect or to be protected from all forms of abuse and respect. Children have a right to have their own opinion heard or listened and taken seriously. Remember the core principles of the convention, those articles that we looked at earlier. Children have the right to be heard. Children have the right to express their opinions without being interfered. But what is the responsibility to this? Listen to other people's opinion as well. And to take other people's opinion seriously as well. Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 6, one of my favorite texts that talks about trusting in the Lord and lean not on our own understanding. In all the ways we acknowledge God. We have to teach our children that they are not always right. It is not always what they desire, what they want to do that must be respected all the time. Sometimes they may not be right, so they need to listen as well. especially to listen to you as the parent. The right to protection from abuse and exploitation. So every child has a right to be protected from being exploited in any way, every manner of exploitation or abuse. What then is their responsibility? They have to stay away from harmful behavior themselves. We do so much. You can remember that when these children are young and they cannot make decisions by themselves, we do everything possible to protect them. You can see when a child is just about to fall, you will see all the people around that child, the way they would just stand up to go and protect that child. Why? Because it is their right to be protected. But when they grow up, they are able to do things by themselves. Let us also teach them the responsibility that is attached to their right. They have to stay away from friends that are leading them to bad influence. Anything that is leading them to distraction. They have to grow up knowing what is right and what is good at their stage. At every stage they reach, let us teach the children their right path, so that when they go out there and they meet the wrong path, they'll be able to stay away. We can relate it to the biblical teaching as we read 1 Peter 5 verse 8. Be sober-minded and be watchful. At their age, they should be able to be watchful, to be sober-minded, knowing that the devil, the enemy, moves around like a roaring lion, seeking who to devour. It is not all the time when you are there to protect the child. But as they are growing up, they should grow up with a sober mind. They should grow up being watchful. There are so many rights that we can look at, but because of time, I think we can look at this, and in your own time now, you can look at all these rights that we have been preaching about, and you can now attach them to the biblical teachings, so that the children will not just know about their rights, but they will also be in position to attach a responsibility to those rights. Finally, let's look at the effects of enjoying rights without attaching responsibilities. One of them is that if the children are only able to identify their rights without knowing their responsibilities, they'll fail to respect others. They'll fail to develop into responsible adults. We have seen suicide cases nowadays, and it's among just after the child age, just after 18. And sadly, just a grade 7, that was the sad news that was circulating on social media recently, it should be last week or so, of a grade 7 who failed the exams and was found just in the corridor, dead, hanged himself. This is a very sad story that no parent would love to go through. So let us teach our children not only to know their rights, but to be responsible of those rights. If we don't, we'll have adults that will abuse power and abuse other people's rights as well. If we don't, we will have adults who will fail to solve problems by themselves. If we don't, we'll have adults that think that everything must go their way. Adults that are rapists. So it is important, my fellow parents, that as we teach our children more of their more of their rights, let us attach their responsibilities as well. Let us attach the biblical principles to those rights that they have. It is also the desire of God to see that our children are safeguarded, our children are protected, our children are provided with everything that they need, because we are custodians and it is our duty to do all those things. But let us make sure that we do not fail to teach our children their responsibilities. Every child is special, and there is need to protect and respect them regardless of their family background, religion, race, culture, whatsoever. As I conclude, I'll leave you with Proverbs 22, verse 6 that says, "Train up a child in a way he or she should go. When he or she grows, he will not depart from your ways." I rest my case for now, and I call for contributions, and I leave it to the moderator. Over to you, Madam Moderator.
Thanks, Mrs. Kapande, for a well-elaborate presentation. We're so grateful. I can assure you we are very, very much edified. We are not the same. Parents, this is your time to bring in your suggestions, how you've been coping, while instilling a sense of responsibility as well as human rights in the children that we have in our households, as well as in workplaces, those that deal with children. So if you have a suggestion, you can either raise your electronic hand or write in the chat box. So as we wait for you to come in, we look at the messages that we have in the chat box. The message is coming from, the first one is coming from, is it Erwin Solutions? Wow, this is amazing. The scripture is being presented to me like I haven't heard before. May God bless you and continue to inspire your mind for his glory. Thank you, thank you. The other one is the presentation is very insightful. The other one being a very detailed presentation. Thank you, Mrs. Kapande, for being meticulous. Wow, Chizungu. So parents, please come in, give us your contributions, questions. If you have any part where the presenter was too fast or was able to chew words, we're able to hear correctly, kindly ask her to repeat or clarify. So you can unmute your mic and speak. Oh yes, go on. Is it Erwin Solutions?
Thank you so much for this. Thank you, Madam, for the wonderful presentation. I have a question. What happens if, okay, I don't know if I'm phrasing it well. I hope you'll be able to get the question out. What about in a situation where, let's say, a child is growing in an environment where there are different authorities, or let's say a blended family, and there are different voices of command in that home, and maybe the parent to that child does not have an authority over their own child, and the other people in the community that she's living in have a bigger say. And in that case, sometimes the other people may be misleading the child, or the parent themselves misleading the child. So how can you help that child, or how can you help that parent?
Thank you so much, Mom. Okay, so if I got your question very well, I don't know if this child is being fostered in another family. Yeah, let me take that aside. But if this child is with a parent, but it's a blended family, I'll give an example where maybe me as a woman, I get remarried, and I find that maybe the father of that of the stepfather now becomes the stepfather. From your explanation, is teaching the child, and maybe you have noted that the child is not being taught the way you're supposed to teach. Is that the question?
Yes, and there are also many influences regarding the other children in the home, especially negative.
Yeah, I see that then. I see that then it's that is very common, especially in blended families. So in that case, a parent is supposed to take a very upper role to find time to be with this child. You know, children really love us so much. They really love us so much that they are able to trust us when we tell them things. We now need to start explaining to this child the right way. You will find that despite the influences, through your prayer, God will water the efforts that this parent is making towards raising this child in God's way. God will not just be silent about it. As long as this parent who knows the benefit of instilling the child the right way, the right path to walk in, takes it upon herself or himself to do it in every little space or chance that you get, make sure that you instill that which you want your child to learn, and God will water the efforts. I may get other contributions from other parents as well. Thank you. And I hope I have mentioned something of help.
Parents, you can come in and contribute to the question that has been posed.
Good evening.
Evening, thank you. You can go on.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for the presentation, and thank you, Sisi, for that question that relates to things that we see happening around us. Yeah, so like she alluded, by way of extension, I want to extend that we also need to look at some other support systems that are existent either within the home or outside the home. Because like the questionnaire asked, children are influenced by so many agents of socialization, which sometimes could not just be within the family where they are growing up from. It could be the churches they are attending, it could be the schools they are attending, it could be the friends they have around the community where they live, and sometimes even the adults around the community. Yeah, because I think you teachers will tell us that children learn much by imitation. So then in terms of the support system that I'm looking at, I think we are blessed to have qualified and sometimes experienced counselors, Christian counselors, that is, because sometimes we might run to a counselor that is also going to instill influences that are going to be negative. But in this case, we might look around within our churches, we might look around within our workplaces, we might look around within our schools. Now that we have also counselors, trained counselors in schools, who some of them are actually people of our faith. We could link these children if peradventure the home setup is not conducive enough for us to exert an influence that would be greater than that which is coming probably from the other parent or from a step parent. So we could maybe make arrangements with external counselors who could be people of our faith, so they also go through sessions with this child. I also wanted to add to say, as children grow older, especially when they get into the adolescent stage, I think that is where we'll be able to see a number of issues arising, and they are arising because of the stage that they've reached, a stage where they are faced with identity crisis, a stage where they would rather listen to their peers more than they would listen to their parents. It's also critical that we understand these developmental stages as parents, so we can find strategies that sit well at every stage. It's easy to sit down with these children that are below the age of 10, because these will take a parent as a role model. But the moment they get into 10 upwards in the adolescent stage, they begin to shift their loyalty from the parents, probably to the people that they view as their role models, especially within their peers. So it's important that we come up with strategies that are going to be suitable and appropriate for each stage of their development. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Elliott. Any other parents with a comment? Parents, we're waiting for you. If you can't talk, you can type in the chat box.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Evening, thank you.
Okay, so I'm also thinking in the same line. In most cases, like the previous speakers said, we find it difficult maybe to even find the rightful words to give to our children as they grow older, because somehow we start thinking they just don't want to understand. But the grace of God is so sufficient that He reminds us that we've been there before. And it's unfortunate that we tend to forget that even as at one point, maybe we also behaved in a certain way. But the biggest point is in as we teach them, as we teach them, we need to help them understand that it's not a case to grow up. It's a blessing, and that they need to know that even as they grow, there are challenges that they need to face and pray about. Because, like the previous speaker said, there's so much influence from their peers. I can give an example in our homes. Our children want phones right now because they think other parents are doing this favor to their children. And they feel if we do not buy the phones for them, we don't love them. But for me, I still stand my ground and tell them until a certain stage. Of course, other parents are going to say, no, we're living in the dot-com era where we need to buy them phones. Unfortunately for me, I don't need to get them phones right now. until a certain stage, because we agreed as a family to say, not until you reach a certain age or you reach a certain grade, that's when we'll get the phone for you. Because we know the distractions. Of course, they will tell you, say, no, I'm just going to download work for school and all that. But there's adverts that come as they're downloading all that work. And you know how the mind is, how the eyes are. They would want to see. So they'll click on that, and that would distract them. The next time they want to see more of that. So as much as parents, other parents would say it's okay to have a phone. No, I'm going to restrict on what they see, what they do. For me, I've told them if they want to download work, they will use my phone. When they reach a certain age, then we'll buy them a phone. Coming back to what my sister brought to the table of how this parent is actually influencing or teaching the other child that we've come with in the marriage the negative parts. I'm thinking maybe the best way, because this is a blended family, I'm coming with my child and my partner has children. I think the best is can we agree in the bedroom on what we're going to teach our children? Once in a while, not every day, once in a while, we sit down as a family and not letting one parent do the teaching. So it's best when we teach them as a couple, as parents. So we sit down and teach them and tell them this is what we think and this is what we believe is not even thinking. We tell them this is what the Bible says, and we're going to let you grow by these words. So teaching as a parent, for me, would not help. Let's teach our children. If both parents are available, teach the children when the two of you are available. Because if I'm going to just get my child, because my partner taught my child, no, you can drink, but don't get drunk. And then I feel, let me take my child out and rub off what he or she was taught. When we go out, I say, no, don't believe what they told you. I don't know what impact that first step had on my child. So the best is if both parents are around, let's have a talk as a family. Let's sit together. But before we do that, can we agree? Maybe somewhere we go out with my husband or in the bedroom, we agree, okay, this is what we're going to tell our kids. I'm not going to choose no, I came with this one, so I'm going to teach no. That will bring about conflicts. So the best is can we agree on something in the bedroom, or we go out, then we bring our children maybe on a Friday or a Sunday or on a Wednesday and sit as a family. Teaching where we say, okay, it's a male child, so let my husband teach. I don't know what's that, just like what our friend said. I don't know what my partner is going to tell my child, or my partner wouldn't know what I'm going to tell the child. So at the end of the day, the best is to teach the children when both parents are available. My submission.
Thank you, my sister. Just on that, when both parents are available, there are cases where both parents are there and you have agreed to say, this is how we're going to do it. Or let's say you're instilling discipline. Then the other parent tends to be quiet. That also shows a very bad signal to the child that you're trying to reprimand. It would show that the other spouse is more vocal than the other. Or let's say it's me who is talking. So I would reprimand that child and my husband is quiet. What signal is it sending? It is showing that he is in support of what that child is doing. But when we're doing that, let's have one language and ensure that we speak the same and we support each other. Not one person is doing it over and over again and the other one is ignoring, especially when it comes to, let's say it's a child that we're keeping, right? Not our biological child, a child that we're keeping and it's coming from my side. Then my husband keeps quiet. He would seem as though he's better than me. That is all wrong. Then the other thing that we should also be exercising is patience. When we're trying to correct the children, let's exercise patience by all means, just as God is. He's so patient with us. We're able to make mistakes here and there, and he doesn't rebuke us there and then. But he has so much patience for us. Even us, we should exercise that. And above all things, let's pray for them and also read the book, The Adventist Home. It is very, very helpful. and it has all the guides on how to go about it. I don't know if there's any other with a comment so that we could close. We're running out of time. Let's just have one person to speak, then the speaker, then we close. Thank you.
Maybe my comment for moderator.
Yes.
Am I allowed to speak?
Oh, yes, Pastor, you can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our sister, and the other speakers who have just given us more light on the question that our sister actually asked for in the forum. The first thing that we should know is if we are thinking of, for example, I have 2 children, 3 children, then I want to marry a woman who has got children. The first thing is if those children are of age, where they are able to reason, before making a powerful move of marrying, sit with the children, talk to the children. I'm about to bring your mother, not another woman, your mother in the family. Your mother, actually, you have maybe older sisters or younger sisters or age mate. It depends with the age of the children. So the family here, where I am bringing this woman, should be prepared, including the children, mentally should be prepared that there will be other children who are joining us. On the other hand, or on the other side, the woman also should prepare the children mentally that, yes, Daddy, you want rice? Okay. I'm sorry for that. The other side as well, the woman should prepare the children that where you are going to find your brothers, your sisters there. And now the 2 of you before, or the 2 of us, before joining together, we have actually made a bond with our children that they are one, and we will agree on how we will be disciplining our children. It's not like your child, it is our children. So when we inculcate these values in our children, that all of you, you are actually, we are one family. One has made a mistake. As a mother, you don't need to wait for your husband to come and says, you know what, your son has done this. From the side of a man, who would defend the child, because the language which I have used or she has used was your son. And then when the father tends to discipline the child that my wife came with, the mother would, maybe even the face, the way she frown her face, the way she talk, the way she behaves, you find that there will be that resentment to also discipline the child. And now, when children start seeing that parents are pulling one another in lines of discipline, they also try to separate themselves. However, when you are able to notice that some values in these children, actually, they are not best values which your child can emulate and also go out in the society with, you need to sit down. There are these values that I'm seeing. These values, our children actually will not be helpful. So how do we help our children to have better values? Because I have seen this, I have seen that, I have seen this in our children. Now, if you use a sentence of, I have seen this in your children, he also, or she also says, do you think you have got the best children? And then quarrels now begins from there. So you need to find the possible better way of approaching the matter to the other side, so that your voice also is audible, is heard, and someone will be able to get the view of how to correct the children in a blended family. However, in a situation where you have no voice to say, of course, someone has said we need to pray. Please pray for that. The other option I can say is have a walk. Take a walk. That could be a prayer walk with the child. Says, okay, today Instead of your husband or the wife to see that you are more with your children, you make a schedule. Today I'm having a walk with this one. Tomorrow I'll have a walk with this one. Yes, Mama, thank you. Thank you. You are the best. Yes. As you are having a walk with your child, you will now talk. Look, there's this. How do you view this? What is your opinion over this? What do you think about this? How do you handle this? When this happens, you are trying to put sense in your child, and the child will be able to answer. I feel the way that one is behaving. For me, I think it is not the best way. Mommy, do you know that I said no when my sister said I can also have a boyfriend? Mommy, do you know that my sister said we should steal money, but me, I don't want to do that. Thank you, Mama. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm being kept busy here now. That was my comment. Thank you. Okay, take them back.
Thank you so much. So, in closing, and thank you so much for all the contributions that have come. Indeed, one thing that we should not forget, parents, is that learning is a process, and it's very difficult to anchor to a situation if we haven't been teaching. So what is important, and like in most of the presentations that we have had here, and what I have touched in my presentation, is that we have to be deliberate about teaching our children, because it is a process. Teaching a child when a situation has availed itself can be very difficult. One, when a child has made a mistake, they are scared. Even if they look stubborn, they are actually scared because of the mistake that they have made. Hence, you find that bringing in a new thing can be very difficult. That's why, as Christian homes, let us enhance family prayer time. In this family prayer time, let's not just look at, when we pick the Bible text to share, let's relate it to situations that we are seeing out there before the situation is in our home. In that way, our children will be learning. Especially in a blended family, it can be very difficult, like other contributors have said, to like segregate the children. This one is teaching this one is teaching this. And in a situation where you tell your husband, let's teach the children about this, or there is this situation, some people are difficult with what they believe in, especially in a blended family. But where you bring in a good thing, such as a family prayer time, everyone, when all of you are back from work, back from school, you gather as a family. In those gatherings, you will find that you learn a lot of things, and you hear a lot of issues from the children, because it shouldn't be just you, mommy, or you, daddy, presenting all the time. Give them roles. Pick a topic looking at what is availing in our societies. Pick a topic. I'll give you an example. When one time in our home, we were just looking at all forms of abuse. And we looked at the biblical stories that talk about abuse, how Dinah was abused, how all the stories, how Absalom's sister was abused. You know, all those stories will bring the real situations that the children are going through, so that when a situation arises in the home, children will be able to relate to what they have been learning already. So let's enhance the family time prayers every day. You make a deliberate move. Some you see, especially your partners, may not embrace it so much from the beginning, but don't relent. Keep on doing it, and you'll find that you enhance your families. They will learn more. Unlike to just answer to a situation when it has come, it becomes very difficult because people have emotions. Hence, for me, I would say let's keep teaching our children because learning is a process. Thank you so much. I wish you happy parenting. Let's continue reading.
Maybe
Let's be
my
deliberate.
presenter,
Yes,
we
Pastor.
are requesting if you can help us with this question.
Oh,
How can
I've seen
I get
it.
my boy
I'm
child
having,
to learn and fit in because the house is dominated by girls?
oh, by girls. Okay. It's not different from my home here, except mine is dominated by girls. So how can we then teach our children that are a minority in a home? How can we teach them? Like I am saying, through these lessons that you'll be having every day in a home, you will find that be deliberate about them, pick topics that can help our children to learn their roles, to learn their responsibilities as we relate them to the biblical stories, biblical principles. Yeah. I don't know if any parent has something to say, then we can close.
Maybe, my dear sister, how old is the child? How old is the boy child?
He's 5 years old.
And how old are the sisters?
12. The other one is 9. The other one is 14.
Just like my home. He's the only boy. But I always tell him that he is a boy, and I always make sure that I tell him about his role. I tell him about him being a boy. Even when I see him behaving or acting in a certain way that is showing otherwise, I make sure that I sit down with him and explain to him who he is. Otherwise, it's not different from my home. Through these meetings, you find that the children will learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you, parents, for having joined. And thank you also, the presenter, for this wonderful lesson that you have shared with us. Parents, we meet every Sunday for these insightful lessons and every Friday for the children. So find time to join us on Sundays and Fridays. If you do not have the link for the group, you do well to contact the people that invited you so that they could share the link with you for the group. So we are going to close. Pastor, give us the closing remarks and a closing prayer.
I've muted myself. Right. Thank you very much, dear parents. I think you have endured until the end. We are very grateful. Mrs. Kapande, thank you very much. I know you had a busy day, but you have just given us a well-loaded lesson or presentation that you have just shared with us. We are very, very grateful. We have learned a lot. And believe you me, your lesson that you have shared, it was live on YouTube, and others will keep learning and learning and learning and learning, including ourselves. We can get on our YouTube channel and we can still get the lesson. Parents, thank you very much for joining. This is the last Sunday of the year. Rule number 1, please don't drive at night, especially tomorrow, the other day. Please, I am pleading with you. If you are driving at night, please be conscious because people are just excited for nothing. We don't want to lose any one of you. Keep our children safe. It's better they are indoors because people are just excited for nothing. My son was sick. That was 2 days, 3 days on Christmas. Actually, the night for Christmas at 01, I have to rush him to the hospital. The road was busy as if it is daytime. I just say, Lord, have mercy. I thought people are sleeping. People are very active. Please, dear parents, thank you very much. This is the last Sunday. Write your vision for the family. Write the vision for yourself. And write the vision for your children. What do you want your children to achieve? And their rights, please help them to actually get their rights right and move with responsibilities. This also helps my sister who asked the last question, how can I help my boy? Please let the boy actually follow the sisters. The way you have raised the sisters, actually they have been copying from he can copy from the sisters. You can share the chores. You can do this. You are going to do this. If it's time to worship, everyone participates. You can just engage your son to do that which the sisters can do. However, know that a boy child is a boy child. You can't train a boy child like a girl child. A boy child will always remain a boy child. Yeah, his hormones, his thinking, and the things he plays with, they are always related with a boy child. And the girl child also, the things they play with, they are related to. So as you are grooming both of them, know the responsibility and the duties and also the values that you should give your boy child as he goes out to meet other boys, and also the girl child as you will do that. I've shared with you my line. You can call me when we are done, and then we can talk on a private line. Otherwise, we are very grateful, dear parents. May God bless you. We'll meet again next year Sunday. Yes, we will meet again next year Sunday on the same time. Otherwise, may God bless you with your ambition, your desires, your love. I pray that may He sustain your family, may He answer your prayers, and may He be with your children. May He be with you if you are a single parent. May God give you strength and energy every day that you are able to raise the children. If both of you are there, or if you are co-parenting, please never should you give up. The Lord is always present with us. Mrs. Kapande and Mr. Kapande, I have seen you are present. However, I will not close in prayer because my big brother is on the call. Please, Elder Kapande, can you pray for us? Elder Kapande, are you in a position to close for us in prayer?
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for your goodness towards us. We thank you for the lessons you keep on giving us every Sunday. We thank you for today's learning. We pray that by your grace, you will enable us to teach our children to know their rights as well as their responsibilities. We realize that as human beings, we are unable to do so. And so we ask for grace from on high to help us train these, our beloved ones. Thank you for the parents that are here. I pray that you may give them a double portion of your blessings, more so as we enter 2025, because we trust in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen and amen.
Amen.
Amen.